The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Indeed, and all three of us are in studio. Enjoy this, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be one of the few times between now and, well, November that the trio is going to all be in studio. Coming up on this week's show, a whole lot of silly season news from NASCAR's Cup and Xfinity Series, plus there's rumors and innuendo and possibilities when it comes to Formula One and IndyCar as well. Good grief, penalties galore in NASCAR. It seemed like it was penalty week over there. There was an appeal heard. We'll give you the results of that. One Formula One team owes a former sponsor some big-time money. And if they don't pay up, there could be major ramifications. We'll deal with that. We got one former NASCAR sponsor still owing a team money. Jeez, that and so much more. I mean, that's just tip of the iceberg stuff. We're going to get to it on this week's show, which is next.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Well, good morning officially to you. I'm Steve West. Matt Nicholson here. Producer John Myers. How's everything this morning?
I'm on one this morning.
Yeah, I know.
I'm on one.
The Xfinity Series race from last night. Plus, you did some iRacing and kind of got punted there too, huh?
Well, when you're in a position to steal a win and you get right hooked into the turn 2 wall, and I almost could have pulled a Jimmy Horton in 1993. I'll just say that.
And then there's producer John over there who's having fun with car dealerships.
Oh, let's not go there.
I'm not. I'm just going to leave it right there. Hey, let's see if we can't make the day better, at least for the next couple hours.
Why not?
Last weekend's racing got rolling in Michigan. Xfinity Series, 16 laps left in the race. Justin Allgaier gets out front. He was even able to survive an overtime restart, claims the win. Beats Sheldon Creed to the finish line. John Hunter Nemechek in third. Anthony Alfredo fourth. Sammy Smith rounding out the top 5. The rest of your top 10, Noah Gragson, the Moonlighter. He was in sixth. Matt DiBenedetto, Taylor Gray. Cesar Baccarella, haven't heard that name a lot this year, and AJ Allmendinger rounding out the top 10. We would give you the rundown of the standings, but why? Because they raced last night, and it jumbled everything up. Saturday night, Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway. Indycar finally got back into action after the Olympics break, and it was a case of spin and win. It was a race slowed by 6 cautions in all. One of them was brought out by Joseph Newgarden, who lost control coming off of turn 2. But he was able to take advantage of a late race restart. He was leading when coming to that final restart and got a great jump when the green was shown. He got the win. He bested Scott McLaughlin by almost 2 seconds. Then rookie Linus Lundqvist, Alex Palou, Colton Herta, Felix Rosenquist, rookie Nolan Siegel, Marcus Armstrong, Stingray Robb, and Renus VK. Thing about it is to get to that final restart, there was a restart right before it that got Joseph Newgarden's teammate just royally ticked off. We'll get back to that story coming up in a bit. Alex Palou leads the points over Colton Herta. Pretty healthy, 443 to 384 point advantage. But there's, half a dozen races left in the IndyCar season, so still a lot of movement to be made there. Scott Dixon's third, 378. Will Power, 377, 370 for Scott McLaughlin. Pato O'Ward's the only other driver within 100 points at 345. So we'll let it go right there, because if you're more than 100 points back, you're going to need a lot of help, number one. And number 2, you're going to need to jump over 6 drivers. That's 2 big hurdles. 1, maybe. 2, I'm not so certain you can do it. Linus Lundqvist is stretching out his rookie points lead in the standings there. It's now 209 to 138 over Kiffin Simpson. Mathematically, it's still possible, but almost impossible. Nolan Siegel's up to 115. Christian Rasmussen, 109. The battle between Chevrolet and Honda and the engine manufacturers over there, that's the closest one of all. 1,050 for Chevrolet, 1,008 for Honda. Cup Series race got delayed to Monday, so the NHRA stepped up to center stage next. Lucas Oil NHRA Nationals, Brainerd, Minnesota was the location. Top Fuel coming down to a battle between Justin Ashley and Sean Langdon. Ashley, much better reaction time, paid off with the win. Clocks in at a 3.745 ET at 329.34 miles per hour. Didn't hurt Langdon, had a problem and to shut it down, so there you go. Funny Car, finals pairing Blake Alexander up against Matt Hagan. Hagan red lighted. This is last year's Funny Car Division champion.
That doesn't happen often.
He not only red lighted, he red lighted with a sub-reaction time of 0.164.
Yeah, that's about like a, I guess you could say about like a foot slipping off the clutch.
Yeah. I mean, heck, if you're going to do it right.
That's right.
Alexander was clean and green off the light, so he gets the win. Ultimately guns his ride to a 3.927 ET, 324.67 miles per hour. That marks Alexander's 4th Mission Foods Drag Racing Series win, his 2nd in Funny Car to date, and I'm sure more are coming. Dallas Glenn, Mason McGahey facing off against each other in the Pro Stock Car Finals. McGahey had a great .011 reaction time and then started to haze his tires. So Glenn passes. He gets the win, 6.613 ET, 206.95 miles per hour. That's Glenn's 3rd win of 2024. We're down to it. There's only one more event before NHRA gets into their chase for the championship six-pack, and 5 of the 10 spots in Top Fuel are spoken for, led by Doug Kalitta, who has a lead over Sean Langdon by 84 points. Trailing by 1 under 5 is Justin Ashley. Steve Torrance down 173. Antron Brown is 187 back. Everyone else, 6 through 10 and behind, are still fighting for the final slots in the Top Fuel chase. 4 slots and Funny Car spoken for. Austin Prock leads the way. 218 points up on Bob Tasca, the third. Matt Hagan, 230 down. 299 out is J.R. Todd in fifth, but not locked into the chase yet is John Force, 441 back. Don't forget, he's got himself that sub-driver, but as we told you a couple of weeks ago, Jack Beckman, what he does now, as many up to 8 races, and he got in the car with 8 races to go left in the year. So everything Beckman comes up with all goes to John Force.
It does.
Then you got the top 6 in Pro Stock Car being locked in. Dallas Glenn leads by 184 over Greg Anderson. 206 out is Erica Enders. Aaron Stanfield is in, but 212 points behind. 304 behind is Jed Coughlin Jr. Troy Coughlin Jr. is in, 473 points behind the leader. And while they didn't race in Minnesota, Pro Stock Motorcycle, there are also 6 who are locked into the chase with 1 event to go. Gage Herrera, yeah, we're shocked. He's the leader by 226 over Matt Smith. John Hall's 351 back, 369 out. Richard Gadsden. Chase Van Zandt sits 374 back. Angie Smith trails by 477. Again, all are locked into the race for that division title. And then it came to Monday. After the rains cleared out, Cup Series was able to finish up their race in Michigan. When it was over, pretty emotional week for Tyler Reddick came to a close with a win that he dedicated to his mentor, the late Scott Bloomquist, who passed away Friday a week ago in a private plane crash. We talked about that on last week's show. You can check it out on CRN Live on YouTube if you choose. Reddick got out front on the first restart of overtime, but Ross Chastain was part of another crash before they saw the white flag, so Reddick had to turn around and do it again, and did. Gets his second win of the year. It also puts him on top of the regular season points, which would mean 15 bonus points in the playoffs if he could hold on to it. And we'll have to find out because we still got 2 more races left in the regular season. William Byron couldn't solve Reddick's restarts. He settled for second. Then you get Ty Gibbs in third. Kyle Busch with a nice run needed for him. Brad Keselowski rounding out the top 5. Chris Buescher, Zane Smith with a good run. Daniel Suarez, Denny Hamlin, and Carson Hocevar fell out the top 10. As far as the 1 seed overall in the playoffs with 4 wins, that's Kyle Larson. Then you got Denny Hamlin, William Byron, Christopher Bell, 3 wins each. 2 wins for Tyler Reddick and Ryan Blaney. Your single-time winners and in the playoffs officially, keep that in mind, with only 2 races left, are Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, Alex Bowman, Joey Logano, Daniel Suarez, and Austin Cindric. Note we didn't say Austin Dillon. We'll get back to that, too. As for being locked in points-wise, no such luck there. Martin Truex Jr. leads the way, 76 up on the cut line, so he's not even safe. Ty Gibbs, 38 over. Chris Buescher's 15 over. Ross Chastain is 1 single point above the cut line. Those trying to race their way in, Bubba Wallace a point under the cut line. Kyle Busch, who despite the good run at Michigan, still sits 93 under the cut line, and this might be the last time we mention Chase Briscoe because he needs big help. He's now dropped to 115 under the point cut line. So that gets us to last night and the beginnings of why Matt is about to go on a bender. Daytona. And Daytona usually causes all kinds of weird stuff, just like Talladega does. Xfinity Series ran the Wawa 250 powered by Coca-Cola. For those of you that don't know what Wawa is, just to let you know, it is a mid-Atlantic-based convenience store chain. And they're starting to move their way into the Southeast. Got a whole lot of locations in Florida starting to work their way into our home state of Alabama here at CRN, mostly southern Alabama.
So it's Circle K.
Only with due respect
Florida.
to Circle K. Nicer.
Hey, it works for me.
Yeah, I've been there. Been to a couple of Wawas. They keep them very, very clean, and the food that they do is nice and fresh. And yeah, it's a nice place. If you get the chance to happen to come across a Wawa convenience store and you need to stop, Wawa's a good place to go. Wawa 250 powered by Coca-Cola aired on USA and MRN Radio. Matt, what happened?
A joke. Oh, did I say that out loud?
No, not too loud. Just, over radio and YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Just had to throw that out there. Here we go again with the hair trigger cautions.
Yeah. Now, again, we've said this before. We'll say it again. If you're going to have a hair trigger caution at some point in time during the race, have a hair trigger caution the entire race. Otherwise, don't.
Yeah. Oh, let me do an addendum to that statement right there, West. They did actually have multiple hair trigger cautions. When you have a lazy spin coming off of 4, for one, that he doesn't touch nothing. He just spins, grabs a gear, and keeps going, throws a caution. Then you got coming down to the overtime finish. Mm-hmm. Okay. Parker Kligerman, he's making his move to go for the lead, which is expected.
Sure.
Well,
that's what you do.
AJ Allmendinger, him and his spotter, they timed the move late, and he comes across the nose of Parker Kligerman.
Sure. And we've seen that before at Daytona and Talladega.
Thousands of times.
Sure. Yeah. Happens all the time.
Did I say thousands of times?
Happens all the time.
Spins to the bottom of 1 and 2, not in harm's way. Momentum's going to carry him, and he's going to come back up to the surface in 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah.
The cars that were behind it were at a much slower pace because their spotters are going car spinning, mm-hmm. eyes forward, he's coming up, mm-hmm. slow down. The pack is all the way off of turn 2. Caution, ends the race.
Yeah, because they'd seen the white flag.
Why are we throwing the caution still with cars moving on the racetrack? It's almost like we're trying and doing our level darndest. Yes, I just caught myself. Our level darndest to manufacture finishes. Why?
It does seem that way, yeah.
Let the race play out on its own. Ryan Truex is a sitting duck without that caution.
Oh, God, yes.
He is a sitting duck. Luckily, luckily for
him, yeah.
He was gifted that one.
Yeah.
He was gifted that one.
Seems like.
Because I'm telling you, the 98 and 39 had gotten hooked up and they were about to.
They were starting to book?
Yeah. That's an understatement.
Yeah.
They were going to book it up to the front. So, with that being said, you have a team that is basically not even on the radar as a JGR in general, not even on the radar this year at super speedway style tracks, and all of a sudden, here they are. They're awake because you've got Ryan Truex winning last night, Chandler Smith in second. He was on the pole, by the way.
Yeah.
They had all 4 of their cars starting the top 7. Yes, I said top 7. Parker Kligerman third, Riley Earps fourth, Ryan Sieg fifth. One of only 3 drivers to have multiple top 10s at Daytona in both races. Jordan Anderson in 6th, Justin Allgaier 7th, Sheldon Creed 8th, Leland Honeyman 9th, and Kyle Weatherman 10th.
Unless I missed my guess, I heard this yesterday. I want to say Larry McReynolds was
Can confirm
the crew chief for Jordan Anderson.
Can confirm.
Man knows how to call a race at a Daytona and a Talladega. There's no doubt about it. So the win by Truex, again, Ryan Truex, part-timer, second of the year, but again, he's part-time. He's not playoff eligible. 8 of your 12 spots are spoken for in the Xfinity Series. Your 1 seed, Shane Van Gisbergen and SVG's got 3 wins. 2 wins for Justin Allgaier, Chandler Smith, Austin Hill, and Sam Mayer. Leading the way with 1 win is Cole Custer, trailed by his teammate Riley Earps with Jesse Love in there as well. Points-wise, remember this, there are 4 races to go in the regular season for the Xfinity Series after Daytona. So nobody's comfortable yet. AJ Allmendinger, 98 up on the cut line. Sheldon Creed, 78 up on the cut line. Parker Kligerman's 29 up. Ryan Sieg's your last one in. He's got a 15-point lead over Sammy Smith. Smith 15 points under. Everybody else is more than 100 points back with 100 points back or more with 4 races to go. So we're not going to mention names at this point in time, but if somebody gets within 100 points, we'll start to mention them here between now and when they actually lock in their playoff field. Tonight, as we air live, Daytona hosting again. It's the Cup Series, Coke Zero Sugar 400. Let me see if I can get that right. It's airing on NBC and MRN Radio. Starts 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Sunday morning, Formula One gets back from their August break finally. In fact, qualifying underway?
It is. Q1 actually just ended.
Okay. They're set to run the Heineken Dutch Grand Prix, Circuit Zandvoort. Okay. 14 turns, 2.64 mile long course. ESPN's got the coverage beginning live tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time after Q1. Who is not advancing?
Not advancing, you're going to have Daniel Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon, Valtteri Bottas, Zhou Guanyu, and Logan Sargent after he took down half of the wall at Zandvoort.
Yeah. And now we know why Logan Sargent won't be in the car next year. Esteban Ocon continuing to have problems with the Alpine car, and since they know that he is absolutely not going to be in that car next year, I don't think they're giving him really good stuff.
Probably not.
Let's see. IndyCar will take over next on Sunday. They're going to run the BitNile.com Grand Prix of Portland, their last road course race of the year for IndyCar. 12 turns, 1.964 mile long road course up in the northwestern part of the country. Airs on USA and IRN radio. Starts 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. And then the Craftsman Truck Series gets into action with a rare Sunday race going to the Milwaukee Mile for a standalone event, the Leonis 175. It'll air on Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time. The only series that is in season that we cover that is not running this weekend is the NHRA. If we check with Athena at some point in time, if she checks in, she may give us a list of all the other races that are going on all the way around the world, including a lot of series you may have never heard of. Pretty cool list that she tends to come up with. So hopefully she will check in on YouTube and be a part of that. When we come back, we talked a little about Michigan last weekend. We're going to talk about, well, the same thing happening in the Xfinity and the Cup Series that we don't often see.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it on this Saturday morning. Wow, one more Saturday in the month of August. Whew. Is it getting older or what? I mean, time is just flying by.
It is.
I don't know.
It is.
We talked about this during this week's Crossed Flags podcast. There were some technical problems with this week's Crossed Flags podcast, which we do apologize for. We hope to have everything settled because this was the first week where we officially switched producers and, still in the learning process, and sometimes that creates problems. So it did in this case. But yes, we talked about this because we don't see this that much anymore.
No.
Cars flipping over in NASCAR. It happens, yes, but it's just not as common as what, I don't know, maybe we used to see. I don't know. Maybe I just think of it happening a heck of a lot more often in the past than it does now.
Yep, a lot more.
And it actually happened twice over the past weekend. Once in the Xfinity Series, the other in the Cup Series. We start off with the Cup Series. Corey LaJoie's flip in the number 7 car, the Spire Motorsports Chevrolet Camaro, happened as he was coming off of turn 2, started to go low to try and get around the 10 car of Noah Gragson. He and the 10, I think, touched. Maybe not. Either way, as they're coming off of 2, they get really close as the 7 dives down to try and go around. He ends up spinning. Now, as he starts to spin, kind of this lazy spin to the left, if you will, all of a sudden, down towards the apron, the car catches air. It flips up onto its roof where it slides down the pavement. The last time we saw this happen is where NASCAR is this weekend, Daytona. You might remember what happened to the 41 car of Ryan Preece last year, where he started to flip over and looked like he was about to stop, and then all of a sudden hit grass, and boom, barrel rolling. And you and I just basically said, depending on whose count you're talking about, it's between 10 and 15 times he barrel rolled.
Correct.
Well, what did Daytona do in response to that?
They paved the entire backstretch.
There ain't no grass back there no more. Michigan ain't done that yet. Keyword yet. Because the picture that you see on CRN Live on YouTube, that's the inside. That's below the yellow line on the backstretch at Michigan, and he's just skidding on down the road. And you're like, okay, well, he'll come to a stop, right? Nope. Once he got to the grass patch, caught, flipped the car over another 1.5 times before it landed on its tires. LaJoie was okay, thankfully for that. In response to this, NASCAR has calmed down and introduced a new larger shark fin that they have now attached to the right side of the rear window. You'll see that on CRN Live on YouTube here in a moment as well if you're watching there. The Chief Racing Development Officer for NASCAR, John Probst, admits that this was done in response to LaJoie's flip. Probst said that he and his team immediately started to research what had been done in the past to come up with this idea. They wind tunnel tested it on Wednesday, implemented it for this weekend, and this shark fin mirrors one that's already on the left side. So they're continuing to put more aero stuff on the car to attempt to keep the car from catching air if it gets sideways. And they said in the wind tunnel test afterward that this had no effect on straight line speed. So it's not going to slow the cars down as far as they're racing on the track. This is the intent of trying to keep the car planted on the pavement.
Slow the corner speeds down.
Oh, there you go.
Slow the corner speeds down, 1. But 2, here's where we're about to open Pandora's box up again for the umpteen millionth time.
The law of unintended consequences again.
This is going to make the cars drive so stable in the corners and in the pack. You're about to see the level of stupid, aggressive moves go from here to here.
Yeah.
In a hurry.
This is the law of unintended consequences. This is what you get when you don't go and do anything more than a wind tunnel test. You come up with the idea on what? You start to research it on Monday. You come up with the idea on Tuesday. You stick it in a car on Wednesday and wind tunnel it, but you didn't actually put it out there and find out what it was going to do when you were on the track in competition.
Exactly correct. And we're going to take you back to the year. Let's see, it was 2021. I believe it was 21. No, 2019. in the year of our good Lord 2019.
Pre-COVID. Remember those days, kids?
Yeah, back in the friendly confines of Talladega.
Mm-hmm.
When NASCAR decided they wanted to just do this random rule change in the middle of the day in practice.
I know where you're going.
He knows where I'm going with this.
I do.
He knows where I'm going with it.
I do.
Oh, we're not going to run restrictor plates on the engines.
Oh.
Don't know what's happening.
Fun stuff with microphones. Yeah. We're going to switch microphones real quick for Matt.
Hang on a minute here.
There we go.
That's a little bit better.
That'll work.
Let's try that
out of the way.
Get the camera back lower here because he knows where I'm going with this.
Oh, I do. I know exactly where this is
right
headed.
In the middle of practice, they decide they want to, because they don't do their research properly, because they take the restrictor plates off of the engines and they go to the tapered spacer.
Yeah.
But what they
Which we didn't have a problem with that on the surface.
Yeah, didn't have a problem with that on the surface. But what they don't account for is you have to change the gear to compensate for the RPM levels that your engine is going to pick up. And when they're running a sustained at Talladega, a sustained 8,900 for 4 hours.
Yep.
Yeah, you got engine builders screaming at the top of their lungs, we're going to fry and melt the motors down. Okay, let's do that. Oh, phone rings. Hey, Russell. Hey, boys, get ready. They're about to announce a rule change here in the middle of practice. What are they doing? Well, I'll send it to you here on the fax in just a moment. I read it, and I'm reading the paper going, dear sweet mother of Jesus, what are they doing? We're going to add a 2-inch wicker to the spoiler to try to slow them down and create more drag. Negative. That's not going to slow them down and create more drag.
That's going to punch a bigger hole in a drafting track.
That's going to make them faster.
Yeah, it's going to punch a bigger hole in the air at a drafting track.
And I'm sitting up there, and you got somebody from NASCAR comes in there in the tower. I can't remember who it was. And I'm going, what are y'all doing?
I can't remember who that was.
I can't remember who it was. They looked at me like I was crazy. I said, y'all are not slowing the cars down. You're about to make them faster. Hey, you don't know what you're talking about. The speeds from one practice go to 201 to 205.
Yeah. We sat there and we watched it. We started laughing about it when that practice session came up, and we saw 205 on that screen pop up. And you and I, we started laughing, not on the microphone.
No.
That would have been unprofessional. But boy, we were laughing in the PA booth.
MRN had the cover, but we got the NASCAR officials right next door to us. And what does Matt do? And Steve starts laughing as hard as he can. I look at him and go, told you.
Oops.
I'm available to hire people. I know how simple physics work.
Again, law of unintended consequences. You didn't test it. You just came up with this thing that you thought might work.
I said I was on
and
one,
something
and
else
I'm confirming.
Let's see. We'll get back to the whole flipping thing. Since we're in Cup Series news, let's stick with it. The appeal by Richard Childress Racing regarding the penalty that was handed out to Austin Dillon and the 3 team at Richmond came down on Wednesday after we completed the Cross Flags podcast, but really to little surprise, the appeal was largely unsuccessful. We say largely. The appeals tribunal did listen. They did start to meet RCR part of the way. They reduced the 3-race suspension of spotter Brandon Benesh down to a single race, yelling wreck him over the radio. So he's going to miss this weekend at Daytona. That's really it.
No. His penalty went for last weekend at Michigan. He's back at Daytona.
Oh, okay. All right.
He is back at Daytona.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Otherwise, the 25 penalty point, the 25 driver and owner points penalty, plus the elimination of the benefit of the win at Richmond for the playoffs remained intact. RCR released a statement right after. In other words, they probably figured that they were going to get, the appeal was going to be denied, and they had the statement ready. And it read, quote, Richard Childress Racing is disappointed in the results of today's hearing from in front of the National Motorsports Appeals Panel. We respect the NASCAR appeals process. We do not believe that today's outcome reflects the facts presented. We plan to appeal the decision to the final appeal officer. Like this one, because it's got playoff implications, it will be heard quickly. Monday, in fact. So on this week's Crossed Flags, we will have that for you. Another penalty from NASCAR came down on Thursday. This one is let's just call it more involved. NASCAR slammed Denny Hamlin and Joe Gibbs Racing. Hamlin docked 75 championship points and 10 playoff points, and this basically all but eliminates his opportunity to win the regular season title. It also puts a hurdle in his bid to claim his first Cup Series title. Why? Hamlin's race-winning engine from Bristol, the March race, mind you, NASCAR said got rebuilt by Toyota Racing Development before NASCAR could take a look at it to make sure that it was legal post-Bristol. In addition to the points fine, NASCAR slapped crew chief Chris Gabehart with a $100,000 fine. How did all of this come about? Let's give the backstory before you go further, okay? Let's give the backstory. Toyota Racing Development.
Go for it.
TRD. Toyota Racing Development self-reported this, TRD President David Wilson's words, not mine, grievous mistake. Said they expected this L2 level penalty, since it is in the NASCAR rule book, in regards to any team, quote unquote, that would alter its engine before it gets the chance to be inspected by NASCAR. Wilson added that TRD takes total responsibility and states JGR has no liability. But because, this is NASCAR's words, not mine, since NASCAR has to fine and penalize somebody, and since TRD can be fined, but they can't really be penalized otherwise, the engine bay that the engine was in gets the point and monetary fine. Matt, take it away.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not even sure where he's going to start with this.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury. And I'm not going to go stuttering like the other attorney that was in My Cousin Vinny. Jury. This is, I don't even know where to start on this one. Why do these geniuses that sit in the office in Daytona and Charlotte, when you have an engine manufacturer, the manufacturer, and you have that builds the engines on their own, in Costa Mesa, California, then they ship them back to Charlotte. When they say, hey, we goofed. That's on us. We goofed. We tore the engine down before it was to be inspected and rebuilt. What this is the intake is sealed to the short block, which a short block is nothing but is the block with the bottom end rotating assembly, pistons, and rods. That's the short block. All right. The way they do these short blocks now, they can get 3 to 4 races out of one short block, which is beyond me. When you run 400 to 500 miles a pop, and you've got rings and bearings that can sustain that kind of beating for that long.
It used to be that they rebuilt these engines every week. Yeah,
and
I remember those days.
There's a fresh bullet every week.
I remember those days.
Oh, it's a cost-cutting measure, but we're going to have $500,000 race cars to put the motors in now. Oh, yeah, you're not really saving costs there, kids. Yeah. But what it looks like to me.
Despite procedures being in place, Denny's race-winning engine from Bristol was mistakenly returned to our Costa Mesa facility in California, disassembled, and rebuilt instead of being torn down and inspected by NASCAR per the book. Although we know with absolute certainty that the engine was legal and would have passed inspection, we left NASCAR in an impossible position because they were not given the opportunity to properly inspect our engine. And since he won the race, that would have been a given that they would have inspected his engine. Wilson concluded by noting that the steps have been implemented to make sure, quote, this never happens again, unquote, and no Toyota team is ever compromised like this in the future.
Didn't they do an inspection after the race?
Maybe a cursory one by opening the hood and glancing at it, but they didn't tear it down.
Okay. And the motor's pulled and get ready to be sent back to California to be sent to be torn down and refreshened up. Okay. I don't understand why you penalize the driver when he had nothing to do with it. I can guarantee you TRD has already done struck the $100,000 check and sent it.
Oh, yeah. Chris Gabehart is not going to have to stroke that check. That is not a Chris Gabehart thing.
Nor Chris Gabehart, when they had nothing to do with it. Oh, but you got to be penalized. You're the bad guy here. Here's a simple thing. You call it a $100,000 fine. Why NB?
Blue Blazes? I'll fill it in for you.
Let me borrow a phrase from my grandfather.
Oh, okay.
Why in the Sam Hill?
Oh, okay. That works too.
Why in the Sam Hill are we penalizing a driver when all he does is put the 5-point harness on, flip the switch, put the car in gear, hold the steering wheel? Stupid.
Yeah.
Makes no sense. I go back to something I said last week. I'm pretty sure I said it on Cross Flags. Give me the keys to the series for a month.
You did. You said it on Cross Flags.
I will clean this garbage up, because it seems like to me half of these people that are in positions that are within the main offices, they're one of those holding those manuals with their hard hat on. I don't know how to do your job, but I can tell you how to do it. Kind of people. Now, don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong here. There are quite a few very good, sharp-minded, well-rounded people that are within some of these tracks and within some of these staffs.
Sure.
Let me make that very clear. But some of the people that are within the high-rises in Daytona and Charlotte, my 10-year-old nephew could do things better than them.
And there you go.
That's round 2 I'm over with.
Yeah.
We'll go to the T-box a third time. I'm sure it's coming.
Oh, I guarantee it, because we got a long ways to go in this show. We up against a break there, Producer John?
We are.
All right, I'm going to let you deal with that. Coming up, we'll talk about what's going on when it comes to Cowlig racing. Turns out Shane Van Gisbergen's going to get a few more chances to drive in a Cup Series car this year. Does that mean things for next year? We'll let you know about that. We've got, let's see, remember the whole Hooters thing with Hendrick Motorsports? Yeah, that's coming back to bite Hooters a little bit more. You might remember we saw a proposed Cup Series schedule a couple of weeks ago. We got some confirmation. We'll deal with that and all of that right after we take this break on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
So last week we talked about how coming up in 2025, Calic Racing is going to re-promote AJ Allmendinger, who I presume will take over the 16 car once again.
That is correct. He will take over the 16.
Again. Remember, he was in it full-time in 2023, but for reasons that we really still have not yet figured out, they demoted him to the Xfinity Series in 2024, and that meant that basically the 16 car became an open car. They had to basically try and patchwork together a whole series of drivers and figure out who was going to be in the car effectively from week to week. Some of those weeks, Shane Van Gisbergen, you know, the guy who came into Chicago last year and in his first ever NASCAR Cup Series race claimed the win. Well, he's about to get a really good feel for Cup Series racing because he's added 5 races total to his schedule before the end of this year. SVG is set to run tonight at Daytona. He will run at Darlington. He will race at Atlanta. He will go to Watkins Glen. He'll be with us at Talladega. He'll go to Vegas, and finally he will also race at Martinsville. Basically, this practically doubles the plan that the team had from the start of the season when he was slated to run 6 total races. He already started the races at COTA, Talladega in the spring, Charlotte in the Chicago Street Course race. Watkins Glen and Vegas were the only races from this point in the season that he was initially slated to race on. So he's going to get a lot more experience in the Cup Series, which tells me they have plans that they are starting to put in effect for 2025.
Yeah, it looks like old buddy's about to step up.
We'll see.
Especially after some of the other things that happened late yesterday dealing with Trackhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll just leave that right where it sits because we're still waiting for some of that to flesh out. How's that? Charlotte Business Journal reporting this week, HMS Holdings Incorporated. This is a company that is affiliated with Hendrick Motorsports. HMS. Get that? They filed suit in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina against Hooters of America, LLC. Why? Unpaid sponsorship fees and interest, which they say totals $1.7 million. This follows the race team's ending of the sponsorship with the restaurant chain, citing the chain's failure to meet their financial commitments to their deal to have the brand on the number 9 car of Chase Elliott. They were supposed to be on at Richmond, you might remember, which was the third of a 3-race deal for 2025, if I remember right.
Yep.
And it is kind of a shame when you stop and think about it, but I understand why HMS Holdings is doing this. I mean, you're owed it by the contract, but if they're already having financial troubles, do you honestly think you're going to get that $1.7 million anytime too soon? Nope.
No, but it's on the record.
Yeah, it is on the record.
They may get paid before somebody else. That's the whole thing.
We'll see. All right. We saw a proposed Cup Series schedule a couple of weeks ago. Shared it with you here and on the podcast, Cross Flags. And when we shared it, we noted that the Busch Light Clash was, according to it, going to go from the LA Coliseum, finally they were getting out of there, to another stadium. But one with a history in NASCAR, Bowman Gray Stadium in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. That officially has now been confirmed. If you have never seen Bowman Gray Stadium in racing form, you need to be checking out CRN Live right now. The 2025 edition of the Clash will take to the stadium February the 2nd of 2025. That marks NASCAR's first Cup Series event at the facility since 1971, technically before we get into the Cup Series modern era. This makes it pretty... Kind of makes sense, though. I will say this. We noted back in March, NASCAR had taken over the racing operations of Bowman Gray in a lease with the city that now runs through 2050. If you're going to spend that kind of money to work with the city to get the racing operation rights to it back, you're probably going to do something with it, right? And they are. Bowman Gray's got quite a history. Built in 1937, NASCAR actually bought it in 1949. Held what we now call Cup Series races there from 1958 through 1971. And then NASCAR sold the facility to the city of Winston-Salem. It has hosted high school. It has hosted college. Heck, it hosted Wake Forest for a while.
It did.
In college football. So it's seen a whole lot. It still sees a whole lot on that field that you see in the middle right there. But it also hosts racing on pretty much a weekly basis.
It does.
So,
It does.
well, there we go. Officially, this ends 3 years of running the Clash at the LA Mausoleum, brings it back east after having run it at Daytona from 1979 until they took it to Los Angeles. Will they ever get back out to Los Angeles, which they claim they covet being having a race in Southern California? I don't know. Again, I go back to the whole Auto Club Speedway thing. This is a NASCAR-owned facility. They sold a lot of the land around it and say, hey, we're going to make it into a short track, but you're having trouble with the construction of it. Here's the deal, NASCAR. You want to race in Southern California, that's where you put it. You and I talked about this on Cross Flag. Stop spending so much money ripping up turf, making it into a track, and then having to rip up the track and replace the turf, all of which USC goes, thank you. Because they're not paying for it. You're paying to lease the stadium. You're paying to rip up the old turf, lay down pavement, rip up the pavement, and put down new turf. USC has no problem with that because not a penny comes out of their pocket for that.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you want to go to Southern California, may I present to you Irwindale Speedway in Kern County.
Yeah. If you're not going to fix Auto Club, go there. Those tracks are longer than Bowman Gray, aren't they?
Considerable.
Well, there you go.
Considerably.
It should be interesting to see what happens at Bowman Gray. And this is February 2nd. We're talking Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I'm not saying it's going to snow, but there's a possibility. Certainly going to be quite chilly. We don't know what the weather's going to be. This could be interesting.
Yeah.
This could be interesting.
It could.
We'll see.
It could.
NBC, the National Broadcasting Corporation, they let it be known that for 3 races, Cup Series races specifically, that are still on the schedule, viewers of the network's race coverage will get to see all of the action.
They did it with Xfinity last night.
That's not to say that NBC or USA won't go to commercial. They have to make up the money that they're paying for the rights to broadcast NASCAR races after all. But for the race tonight at Daytona, as you noted, the race last night, which was on USA, the playoff race at Atlanta, and when the series returns to Talladega for the playoff race in Talladega in October, all commercials will air, but they will be featured in one of the side-by-side boxes on your TV screen, meaning all the action on the track will continue in the other box for the entirety of all 3 races.
I was going to mention side-by-side.
My question is this. Why can't we do that for all the races?
Marvelous question there, Judge Halla.
Just asking.
It's my cousin Vinny Day over
Yeah.
Chamberlain Holla.
I'm just asking. If you can do it for 3 races, couldn't you do it for all of them?
You could.
Okay.
I guess it's just the aspect of the super speedway part, maybe.
Apparently. I guess.
So.
I mean, if it were me, I'd be going, there's that championship race out there in Phoenix. And I might do it there too.
Hey, there's a brain buster, NBC.
Just throwing it out there.
I mean, you know.
On the radio side, we told you earlier this year that this is the last season for PRN, Performance Racing Network lead announcer Doug Rice, to call races for the network. This week we got a surprise. MRN, Motor Racing Network lead announcer Jeff Striegel has decided this is going to be his final year as well. Striegel has been the lead announcer for the network for all Truck, Xfinity, and Cup Series races since Joe Moore retired.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, 4 years ago?
I think 4.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
We think. He's been with the network somewhere around the mid-1990s. He posted on social media Wednesday, quote, "I've made the decision that after 27 years with MRN Radio, this will be my last. The journey has taken me places and provided opportunities that I could never have imagined. I have memories that will last a lifetime and friends that I will miss dearly. I'll see you in Daytona." He posted this on Wednesday, I believe it was, so he hadn't even traveled to Daytona yet. That's why it says that at the very end. You and I have had the chance to talk with Jeff, kind of get to know him, since we have spent a lot of time in a booth right next to him.
Good guy. We're good.
Yeah.
Good guy, top-notch fella to talk to.
Yeah. Just like Joe Moore, just like Barney Hall, going to be missed. Ain't no doubt about it. He is going to be missed. We'll have to see, and we'll keep you updated as we find out what the new lineup for the Motor Racing Network will be as we head into 2025, just like we'll let you know what it's going to be for the Performance Racing Network.
Please, dear, 6 ounce baby Jesus. Please.
Did we go from My Cousin Vinny to Ricky Bobby?
Yeah, we did. Please. We sure did. Please, I'm begging you. With a 2-liter of Mountain Dew and a Domino's pizza sitting in front of us here that was in the movie. We're playing a movie scene here. MRN, please pull that jackleg out of the booth and get us back to normal. Because the golden child needs to step up,
Sure.
But I found it kind of funny that they may not be liking the golden child after all, after the roster that I saw last night calling the Xfinity race for MRN.
Now, for those of you that don't know, before he goes down this road, MRN, Motor Racing Network, is a company that was started by NASCAR.
Was?
So Motor Racing Network is the radio base, if you will. They are the radio network for all races that happen at all NASCAR-owned facilities, like Daytona.
If you want to go, some of the ones to refer what we're talking about, the old ISC tracks.
Yes. Speedway Motorsports Incorporated is an entity all themselves. They own their own tracks, Charlotte, Atlanta, Bristol, so on. They decided that they wanted to have their own network that covered the races at their tracks. So they helped create the Performance Racing Network, PRN. The two entities know of each other. They respect each other
Very much so.
within the circles. They call themselves the blue shirts, MRN, and the red shirts, PRN, just as a little bit of fun. Earlier this year, we told you that after Doug Rice had said that 2024 was going to be his final year, the Motor Racing Network gave him some airtime with them so that he could call a Daytona 500 to kind of flesh out that resume, because that was one of the big, humongous tentpole races that he'd never had a chance to do.
I think he called about 10 laps of it.
So now he has the chance and can say, yes, before I retired, I actually had a chance to call Daytona 500. Okay, really cool move on their part. But for the most part, you see very little connection between MRN and PRN. Last night you had your booth of Jeff and Alex, which we
that
expected.
we just talked about. Your lead turn announcer, which is always in turn 1 and 2. You had Dave Moody.
Mm-hmm. That's constant.
Bagman's on the end of the backstretch where he's always at his super
That's
speedway.
also a constant.
Turn 3, you had the new voice calling the turns, coming off of pit road, going to the corners. You had Chris Wilner.
Mm-hmm.
Chris did a very good job being a first race calling in the corners last night.
Yeah.
So the peg meter will go up a little higher tonight. On pit road, you had your lead pit reporter, Steve Post. You had Alan Cavana. Alan Cavana has been with PRN a lot this year.
Yeah. A whole lot.
And then the third voice, when I'm driving down the road when I'm going to a local ice cream establishment, decided we were going to get some ice cream for me and my wife, and then I had to sit for 45 minutes waiting on simple
An ice cream
cup
scoop.
of ice cream. Yeah, that's another problem. I'm sitting there and I hear the voice of none other than Brad Gilley on pit road.
Brad Gilley's pretty established at PRN.
Brad Gill, I will be surprised if Brad Gilley does not take over for Doug Rice next year.
Yeah, I would be shocked as well.
I was like, huh?
Yeah. I mean, Alex Hayden probably will become the lead announcer with Jeff Striegel's absence. And who will join him in the booth, we don't know.
And respectfully, he should.
And I agree.
He should.
Who will join him in the booth at MRN next year, we don't know. Same with Brad Gilley. Brad Gilley slides over, takes Doug Rice's spot. Who takes over for him? Not 100% certain at this point in time.
Probably, to my knowledge, I think Mark Garrow's staying.
Okay.
So it'll
Well, that would
probably,
make
be
sense
Gilley taking that spot.
Okay. And they might just pare it down to a two-man booth.
Probably be a
instead of
2-man booth instead of a 3. But I was, that voice is on a different frequency. I'm like, hey, Brad Gilley's on MRN. Huh?
Yeah.
His reaction.
That was my reaction. What?
But
That's interesting.
But to see that actual networks can coexist and work as well as radio side guys do. That was very refreshing last night to hear.
Yeah, pretty cool. But it does throw up some questions.
And I'm praying those questions get answered.
We'll find out.
After this.
Oh, is it after this?
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, one more note in the Cup Series, and then we'll turn our attention to the Xfinity Series, where a fairly decent-sized penalty was handed out as well. But if you are into books that are related to NASCAR history, we have one for you, and it'll come out, shockingly, just in time for Christmas. It's almost like they planned it that way. We'll tell you about it. We'll talk Xfinity Series penalties and such when we come back. Hour 1 in the books. Hour 2 next.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey,
boy.
Welcome back in. Yeah, we're having fun with other stuff going on. We can't put this on the air.
Yeah.
But we'll let you know this. If you didn't know, you're in the southeastern part of the country. Where have you been? College game day starts this weekend with what they call week 0.
Yeah.
Which it's a phrase I absolutely, by the way, hate.
Yeah.
How can you have a week 0? What is week 0? Does the game not count? Oh, I'm sorry. Who's going to win today between Florida State and Georgia Tech over in Dublin, Ireland? Are they going to have a 1-0 record? And is the loser going to have an 0-1 record? Then it ain't week 0. It's week 1.
Let's just say that the college game day signs are in rare form already.
Yep.
In Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Very
just say
rare.
Florida State fans are not happy with Kirk Herbstreit, who's up on the stage. We'll just put it that way.
Let's just say Nick Saban's up there too.
Yeah. Well, he didn't have necessarily the biggest part in that. He just happened to be the coach of the team that knocked Florida State out. So, that's the way it goes.
And on that note.
Yeah, let's get back into why we're here. If you're into books that delve into the history of NASCAR, this is a book that just might be of interest to you. It is entitled NASCAR Mavericks. It will hit bookshelves November the 12th. Like I said, just in time for the holidays. Book's going to celebrate the innovators and innovations that have made NASCAR the top motorsport in the United States over its 76-year history. All in all, some 60 different stories going to be told in both words and pictures, covering each of the decades in turn. It will begin with the biggest innovator of all, Big Bill France. Tony Stewart took the time to write the foreword for the book. Ross Chastain actually penned the afterword. I guarantee you I know why. Think Martinsville and some little move that we know as the Hail Melon. Both happen to be featured in the book as well, along with names like Chad Canal, Smokey Yunick, Curtis Turner, Janet Guthrie, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Looks like it'd be a pretty cool book.
Yes, it
Don't know
is.
how much it'll cost, but if you have a NASCAR fan, this might be a perfect Christmas present.
True.
You mentioned a little bit ago about the Trackhouse racing, things kind of going sideways, weird.
I don't know if I would call it going sideways, but late last night, really right about the start of the Xfinity race, Trackhouse announced that themselves and Zane Smith have mutually agreed to separate at the conclusion of the 24 season.
See, we wondered about that.
Yeah.
Because it looked like they were going to have a problem trying to figure out seats if Zane Smith was going to stay.
Yeah, allowing him to pursue other opportunities immediately. And was the Spire Alliance and Trackhouse Alliance will continue for the remainder of the season, which we've seen out here probably since I think about June.
Yeah.
They have kind of woken up.
They have. They've stepped it up.
They've
Carson
woken
Hocevar was pretty good right out of the gate. We'll give him that. But you and I kind of wondered the whole Spire situation because for all intents and purposes, other than the flip over on his hood, we haven't talked a whole lot of Corey LaJoie, and then noticed at the end of the race Zane Smith with the top 10, and we haven't talked about that much all year long either up until just recently.
Yeah, and just recently, very shortly after that they released that statement, Zane Smith released a statement of his own. Quote, I'm disappointed that I've been put in a tough spot. I am diligently exploring quality driving opportunities and hope to quickly wrap up my plans for next year. Meanwhile, kudos to our 71 Cup team. We've turned our year around this summer with 6 top 20 finishes in the last 10 races, which includes a top 10 last week and a runner-up finish in Nashville. With more determination than ever, I will continue to do what I know is best, and that is work hard, race my heart out, and prove myself. Thank you to everyone that continues to stand behind me.
He's
Survey is saying that he is driver number 3 front row.
I could see that.
I could realistically see that too, which tells me, thinking about it, you never should have left him to start with.
Yeah, probably not. But, I will say this for Zane Smith. This is a guy who now has nothing to lose.
Oh, yeah, he's got nothing to lose.
He's playing with house money.
But to me, for somebody that has said and explicitly made it known they're not hurting for money, they've got the resources to do what they need to do, this puts a little bit of a black eye on Justin Marks.
I would agree with that.
No disrespect. We
that.
can agree to disagree, but it puts a little bit of a black eye on Justin Marks because you're hedging your bets on SVG. You pull Zane Smith in, but you only want to sit on 2 charters right now. When you've got Spire, when you've got Spandretti. You see what I said there?
I do. I see what you did.
$40 million to buy a charter from BJ McLeod. Don't you think that you throw up 25 or 30 million that Rick Ware wouldn't say, here you go?
Very possible.
And you've got 2 charters sitting out there still with SHR.
Which I'm still
floating.
not 100% convinced he's going to sell both.
I mean, Gene keeps them other three.
I know he keeps saying it, but I think, again, I'm still not 100% convinced because the dragging of the feet on this is just so glaring to me. I mean, even to not have somebody go, okay, we have agreements with.
Sure.
Once the charter agreement comes to fruition and we all agree to it,
sure,
then we'll go ahead and complete the deal. But until then, we have an agreement with Team A and Team B. We're not even hearing that.
Yeah, you don't. But, you see Bob Jenkins was quick to stroke the check and get that one.
That
charter.
he was.
All right. That was probably a lot with Ford, too. So here's probably what I can foresee happening, and we can time stamp it at 9:11 a.m. on 8/24/2024. So you can go back and look at it. So if this comes to fruition, you can say, dang, he was right again. Either one of two things are fixing to happen. Trackhouse is going to get that third charter. SVG is getting pulled over. All right. He'll be in the third. He's in the third Trackhouse car, or say that 2311 slips in and gets the second charter. Gene Haas decides to want to keep a second charter for a second Cup car, which I think if he was going to do that, he probably would have done it by now. But who knows? Gene Haas will play poker, will you?
Mm-hmm.
Option 2 is now AJ's done been confirmed to go back to the 16 car full time, which never should have happened to start with.
He never should have been taken out of it.
All
Agreed.
Right. Tells me that there's a possibility that SVG gets pulled to go to the 31 and Henrik gets ousted. And he'll be in the 31 full time with an alliance with Trackhouse, and Trackhouse helps prep the car and do whatever. Be one of them two. One of them two things will happen.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to watch this.
You got to see where the charter domino falls first. Now that Zane Smith is officially going to be away from Trackhouse and probably set to go back to front row.
Probably.
That's one of the two things I could see happen.
And that's a nice trio for front row if that happens.
It would not be a bad trio at all.
Nope, not at all.
Not at all.
All right. Let's take a quick look. Formula One here. Qualifying is over for tomorrow's Heineken Dutch Grand Prix.
It is over, and McLaren has taken the pole again with Lando Norris. You got Verstappen second, Piastri third, Russell fourth, Perez fifth, Leclerc sixth, Alonso seventh, Albon eighth, Stroll ninth, and Gasly 10th.
All right. So this tells me that McLaren hasn't lost anything over the break, and Red Bull didn't find anything over the break. So we could be in for an interesting final portion of this year.
Perez woke up in droves.
Well, I don't mind his qualifying run. I want to see him finish it out.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
We'll see where he is at the end of this race as well. All right, turning our attention to the Xfinity Series. More penalties from NASCAR handed down. Big Machine Racing and driver Parker Kligerman got snapped with a L1 level penalty. They failed pre-race inspection in Michigan. They cited Rule 14.4.10.A of the rule book, regards unapproved modifications to the rear spoiler. Due to that, NASCAR docked the team and the driver 20 points each, including 5 playoff points, assuming, of course, that he gets in. He's the 11th seed out of 12 right now. Crew chief Patrick Donahue was fined $25,000. Saturday in the Xfinity Series race, Kyle Sieg on the final lap there was headed down the backstretch himself in the middle of the field when a couple of cars spun ahead of him. He got caught up with the 81 car, and as the two cars spun down the apron, Sieg's car also flipped over onto its roof, touched the inside wall, hit that grassy area that we were talking about when it came to Corey LaJoie, and right in the leading where turn 3, it did a barrel roll, landed on its tires. Kyle Sieg was checked and released at the track. The reason we're not highlighting this one as much, again, he's flipped over onto his roof.
He had help.
He had help in this situation. We talked about the 81 car. That was kind of what forced the situation, that put air under the car and helped it flip over. We mentioned it mainly because Kyle Sieg was able to walk away from the infield care center and was okay.
Sure.
And we're happy to hear that.
Yep.
Haas Factory team, we noted on the show last Saturday, was set to announce their 2025 Xfinity Series driver lineup. Murphy's Law being what it is, right about 30 minutes after we went off the air. Thanks, Gene. Turns out they swung for the fences, garnered a couple of nice polls from rival teams. Haas Factory drivers for 2025 in the Xfinity Series going to be Sheldon Creed. Moves over to take over Cole Custer's ride, the 00 Ford Mustang. This is an interesting move because this now marks Creed's third team in 3 years Richard Childress Racing last year, this year Joe Gibbs Racing, next year Haas Factory Team. Get back to a theory on this. He'll be joined by another Haas newcomer, and that's Sam Mayer. Sam Mayer's leaving Junior Motorsports at the end of this year to take over that second car, which is set to be renumbered, by the way. Right now, that is Riley Earp's ride. It features the number 98 on the side and the roof, right? 2025, they're going to change it to mirror the Cup Series ride. It'll have the number 41 on the car. And this is not unprecedented for Haas, because as Stewart Haas Racing, Kevin Harvick has taken an Xfinity Series Moonlighter run and used the number 41 on it.
Yes.
But it's been a very sparsely used number. It's going to be full-time next year. Mayer has had more success in Xfinity Series competition with Creed. Now, Creed does have a series record of second-place finishes without a win. 11, I think, is where it currently sits.
Something like that, yeah.
While Mayer himself has racked up 6 wins, and he was actually fighting for the championship in 2023. He also won back-to-back ARCA East titles in 2019 and 2020. So they pull a driver from Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota, and they pull a driver from Chevrolet and Junior Motorsports. This tells me this is Ford Performance getting back into it and restocking their bench, which was all but empty.
Yeah, their bench was down to probably the third and fourth string, if you ask me.
Yeah, and Haley Deegan, who is sitting on the bench wondering when she's going to get her next chance.
True. But, when you have the likes of, and it's not disrespect to them, it's because this is speaking from a level of inexperience and unstable opportunities. Let's call it that. Unstable opportunities.
Okay.
To which, again, last night, AM Racing is clearly showing more and more by the day and by the lap, it wasn't the driver.
Yeah.
It was the car.
Yeah. I mean, putting Joey Logano in the car at Chicago just to kind of do a benchmark, and then hearing what we heard out of Joey Logano over the radio at Chicago should have told you everything about never should have pulled Haley Deegan from the car.
That.
I'll leave it at that, because we've talked about this since Chicago. Go back and listen to previous episodes of this and Cross Flags. We've mentioned it on both.
All right. When you have the talent that you have available to put in a car with Ford to run an Xfinity race last night, to which we've seen a lot of trends here of late, to where you can where Cup drivers won't run super speedways as much, hardly ever anymore.
True, yeah.
All right. You've got the ability within the Ford umbrella, let's call it that, to pull somebody to drive the AM car at Daytona last night. But what do? We go pull somebody that has never started an Xfinity race a day in his life. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the driver, Gus Dean.
Mm-hmm.
Am I taking a knock on Dean's abilities? No, because he has won super speedway races in ARCA.
Sure.
Here's the kicker, kids.
But you're up 2 levels from ARCA.
ARCA to Xfinity. Yeah, that's like going from...
You're going from rookie ball to AA.
Yeah, you're going from rookie ball to AA. All right. But when you get in a lap 1 accident, AM Racing, you're patching the car up. The lap 1 accident was let somebody go there because it took out Austin Hill, which was refreshing to see somebody else compete for an Xfinity Super Speedway win, other than seeing the 21 walk off with it and dominate and leave the country.
Yeah, which that is impressive in and of itself, but it does get kind of old and tired.
You get the damage repaired, but when you see within a lap later, the 15 car has blown up. How does it blow up? How does it blow up under caution? Because we patched up the front area and we closed the grill off.
Oops. Airflow is kind of important. Just saying. While no crew chiefs were mentioned in the reveal of the driver lineup for the Haas factory team, it does mean that only one of the current 6 drivers at Stewart-Haas Racing is set to remain with the team in 2025. Cole Custer, who, as we mentioned last week, will get his crew chief from RFK Racing. So the turnover from Stewart-Haas Racing to Haas factory will mean a major turnover or layoff, as the case is. Gene Haas said that after Phoenix, about 323 of the current Stewart-Haas Racing employees will be looking for jobs. Haas admitted that some of the current SHR employees will get an offer to remain with the team as it changes over to Haas factory, but he expects the shop to employ only about 90 to 100 people in comparison to their current payroll. Again, 6 cars going down to 3. You don't need as many people. All those people now looking for, or soon to be looking for jobs. And again, we don't know who the crew chiefs are except for the Cup Series car. That's the only one that's been announced specifically. As for other notes on silly season, we talked to AJ Allmendinger going up to the Cup Series. That means they got an empty seat in the Xfinity Series. Who's going to fill it? We'll tell you after we get back from this break.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Two tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Still an Xfinity Series coverage here. I'm Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers, and Cowlick Racing, again, noted last week, they're promoting, again, AJ Allmendinger back to the Cup Series, meaning that they need somebody in Xfinity Series competition, and for that, they've signed Craftsman Truck Series driver Daniel Dye. Okay. Dye is in the Truck Series playoffs this year. He got in at Richmond. Barely. but he did. Next year, he'll slide over to take over the number 10 Chevrolet Camaro for Cowlick. It's a car he's familiar with. He's made 7 starts in it so far this year, recording 2 top 10 finishes, Iowa and Indianapolis, where he got his best finish, 7th. But he's relatively inexperienced. Dies only in his 2nd full-time season in the Truck Series after posting just 1 top 10 finish under the GMS Racing banner last year. He moved with his familiar number 43 truck over to McAnally Hilgeman Racing this year, where he does have a top 5 and 6 top 10 finishes so far this year. It's good enough to make the playoffs. But again, he's already on the hot seat. He's the 10 seed out of 10 contenders. And he's still slated for 3 more starts in that 10 car in the Xfinity Series next year. But you are thinking maybe there might have been somebody that would have been out there maybe with more experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the understatement of the morning. Because, one, this tells me, all but tells me Shane's going up next year. He's going up.
Yeah.
Okay.
See where you're going.
Okay. They, in this same thing, too, Dye's going to the 10. With Josh Williams is staying in the 11 next year, per their release and their news conference. So the only car left open is a 16 car. But for the love of mankind, humanity, and everything above, why are we pulling somebody that has one ARCA Series win? One. Somebody, I'm begging you, somebody, please tell me, other than bringing a checkbook and clout from Michael Waltrip that you really haven't earned, other than a checkbook and Michael Waltrip behind you, because every single truck broadcast, it's now Jamie Little and Michael Waltrip raving about Daniel Dye.
Why? What has he done?
What has he done? He had to scratch and claw his way into the playoffs, which anybody else could have had to do that same thing too. But through the scope of your whole career, 2 years ago, let's say 3. 2 to 3 years ago, you were in ARCA. You're running part-time to trucks with GMS. You get pulled full-time to GMS, and then you move over to McAnally Hilgeman when GMS says, see ya. What have you done other than bring a check? Nothing. This right here is what is continuing to destroy motorsports.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. We got another story about it coming up in a little bit.
It's destroying motorsports because any Tom, Dick, Harry, Susie, Bobby, Sue, Elvira, June, whatever, can bring a check and say,
oh, could you play his greatest hits?
Oh, you liked that, didn't you? God rest your soul, Joe.
Yeah, amen.
It tells me anybody can say, go through. Chris Rice, here, I've got $7 million. I want the 16 car. Sold. What have you done on the racetrack? Oh, nothing, but here's $7 million.
Okay. Good enough.
Schedule a press conference. You're in the 16 car next year. Guess what? Red, white, and blue diamond will be on slapping and blazing on the hood because we've got a design that can be used. That's all I'm saying.
Those of you that are watching on CRN Live on YouTube, you've seen it. Turning our attention to the IndyCar series, an interesting note about the IndyCar race at Worldwide Tech Raceway Gateway. We let you know there were 6 cautions on the day if you were checking in a little more than an hour ago when we did the race recap. Those 6 were costly. Of the 27 cars that started the race, only 18 were running at the end. And also to note, of those 18, those that were on the lead lap at the finish, 6. One of those that didn't finish was Will Power, who was seeing red at one of his own teammates. Power was dominant on the day. He led 117, I should say, of the 260 laps and was lined up 4th on the second to last restart with his teammate Joseph Newgarden out front. As Newgarden was leading the team to the field to the restart zone, Newgarden kept waiting and waiting.
Waiting.
And waiting some more. And some behind him began to anticipate. And Newgarden waited some more. Power ended up getting run over, literally, by Alexander Rossi, who flew up and over Power's car with his own, and all 4 cars got damaged due to that. Newgarden admitted after the race was over, which, again, he won, that he was going to go deep into the zone before getting on the gas, but other drivers were not impressed. Colton Herta said flat out, quote, "That's dirty by Newgarden," unquote. But it was Team Penske teammate Will Power that was the most vocal, saying on broadcast, which means cleaned up, quote, "Where are you supposed to go? Between turns 3 and 4, he just waited and then went and stopped. He went and stopped. I knew that that was going to happen as soon as I checked up because he checked up again. I knew I was going to get pounded. Man, it's disappointing. We had such a good car. Like, we just go to the last 10 laps of the last 2 races, and we just have bad luck. We keep fighting, see if we can get this Verizon Chevy up there. That's pretty tough from here. And I don't know why. I do not know why they would just keep backing up and not going. I just don't understand it. And then I'll say this. If you're able to rewatch the last, 4 or 5 laps of that race, and watch them as they do camera coverage of Will Power talking teammates, if you're a lip reader, you're going to get a whole lot more than what we got when Power was talking to cameras.
I feel sorry for Dylan Welch on this one right here because he was the one that caught the brunt of it unfairly. But he was just doing his job.
Yeah.
All he did was look. Hey, Will, and
Will turned around and just jumped on him.
To use a line of the Smokey and the Bandit. Hey, Sheriff, do the letters Foxtrot Oscar mean anything to you?
Yeah. And then Will...
Then he stopped and called out.
Then Will realized who it was that he was saying that to and went, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
IndyCar officials decided against any penalty on Newgarden, said that they saw where Newgarden was at the end of the designated restart zone, but as he approached the end of the zone, race control, as is their prerogative, showed the field the green, and said that video showed that Newgarden got on the gas right about the same time that the green flag started flying, so that there actually was no basis for a penalty.
Time out again. They're wrong.
Soapbox.
They're wrong. Because James Hinchcliffe and Townsend Bell were ripping him to absolute shreds on the broadcast.
Yeah.
It was, when you listen to the throttle go, like that. I'll do it one more time. That's what it sounded like. That's considered.
He's hedging his bets.
You're hedging your bets. 1, 2. That's considered like a brake checking move, even though you're not physically touching the brake. You're slowing the field down to get an illegal jump. Okay. Secondly, if you watch the green light come on, then he fires. That's a restart violation. That's a manipulation, my opinion. I'll argue with you. I don't care.
No,
because I've been in those situations where restart violations have been called for me and against me. Let's call it that way. So, and thirdly, he fired outside of the restart box.
Yeah.
Late. Not early, late.
I would agree. But they chose not to penalize him, so we can second guess it all we want, but nothing's going to change.
And the other teams that are non-Penske related are getting a little bit louder of how these races are getting officiated.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Not a little bit, a lot.
Andretti Global and their alliances have been slowly going away. Earlier this year, they abruptly ended their alliance with Uncos Hollinger Racing after the dust-up with now former driver Agustin Canapino. Now we get word coming down that Meyer Shank Racing is set to end their technical alliance with Andretti at the end of this year, and they're moving to align with Chip Ganassi Racing starting next year. All this has led Andretti Global COO Rob Edwards to say that once this comes to an end, he could foresee the end of any alliances for the team for some time.
Well,
there's more to this. There's a deeper part to this story, but we'll get to that in a second. He said, quote, "The relationship with MSR has been unique on the level of trust and cooperation, transparency, everything working with Mike and Jim. So I don't think we're looking to do another technical relationship just for the sake of doing something." Edwards talked to Racer.com, also took the time to address a rumor that Andretti had been planning on moving from Honda to Chevrolet engines for 2025, said, quote, despite the paddock rumor that we're about to change to a new manufacturer, we're not about to change to a new manufacturer. That limits the pool of potential technical partners. Didn't you just say you weren't going to have any? Anyway, at this point, there are no plans to do another technical partnership, but that doesn't mean that it's not something we don't believe has value. We're just not sure that the right partner is necessarily out there at this moment. This
Sure.
Okay, fine.
Sure.
Fine. Okay, so you're not gonna move from Chevrolet to Honda or from Honda to Chevrolet. Okay, fine. You're not gonna do another technical alliance at this point in time. What does that do? Think about this for a second. You're about to open up one massive racing facility northeast of downtown Indianapolis, which will have room for the F1 team that you haven't been granted yet, your IndyCar operation, your Formula E operation, your IMSA operation, and whatever other racing you're involved in, right? What does not having to deal with a technical alliance or any alliance with a Hunko Solinger Racing or a Meyershank Racing allow you to do? It allows you to free up resources,
Which therefore make you stronger.
and it also tends to lead more credence to that report that we just talked about within the last couple of weeks, saying that Andretti was thinking very seriously about getting into what sport?
Actually, I heard two. That would be NHRA and NASCAR.
Huh. Just noting. The aforementioned Hunko Solinger Racing is looking ahead after splitting with the aforementioned Agustin Canapino. We detailed that last week. They're bringing in Connor Daly. He'll fill out the remainder of the year, and I'll be shocked if he doesn't get that car next year, because if they don't give him that ride, sorry, Ricardo, but I'll just say it right now, that'd be a dumb move.
You can't tell. Back to Andretti. And I will die on this hill. You cannot tell me they're not already in NASCAR. Because I keep hearing the old song by Lone Star.
Just not by name.
The old song by country group Lone Star. I'm already there.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look around.
Yeah.
When you see Gainbridge on the quarters, that means I'm on the grounds. Like that, didn't you?
I do. I like that. Let's see here. Connor Daly needs to be in that ride. He needs to be full-time next year. The other ride, former F1 driver Romain Grosjean's proven that JHR can have performance. He's got 5 top 10 finishes so far this year, and the best team finish of 4th at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. That's their best in history, by the way, as JHR. Ricardo Junco said he's hoping to keep Grosjean in 2025, said, quote, but, well, right now we don't know if we'll be able to continue with him or not. He already has offers from other places. There are many drivers around, and there are some options, but not many yet with free seats for next year. Grosjean himself hasn't commented on what he might be thinking for 2025. For him, I can understand it. You're certainly, as a driver, especially if you're on a year-to-year deal, you're going to look around and see what might be out there. If something is better, you certainly would jump at it.
Sure.
If you're Juncos, on the other hand, and this guy is giving you your best finishes so far in the history of your team in the series, you're going to want some stability, especially after you just lost your alliance with Andretti. That's why I say you need to sign Connor Daly for next year, because he's about the best driver out there when it comes to free agency.
I thought they lost their reliance with McLaren because they're Chevrolet.
Well, either way, alliances are, all over the place.
They lost it all the way around. Yeah.
But the whole situation is just kind of going, give your team some stability. Get Connor Daly in there, since he's finishing out the year this year anyway. Get him in there. He's going to be familiar with the team. He's going to be familiar with all the players, the pit crew and everything. Put him back in the car next year, and then do your level best to go figure out what it's going to take to keep Romain Grosjean in that car.
That would turn your team into respectable.
Yeah.
Very respectable.
Yeah. That gives you stability on the driver's side, and then you can start working on everything else. Nashville coming up very, very quickly on the calendar, and despite not being a presence in Nashville, we have got a sponsor coming in to give the fans something to watch in downtown. We'll talk about that next.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network.
Still here in Lincoln, formerly the Still.
Fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, sprint to the finish of this week's show. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers in studio with you this weekend. Thank you very much for joining us. And despite not being a major presence in Nashville, not even really being a presence in Nashville yet, major Midwest market supermarket chain and major IndyCar sponsor Hy-Vee stepping up. They're going to be the title sponsor of a pit crew challenge that's set to take place in downtown Nashville before the championship deciding races run at nearby Nashville Superspeedway. Being titled the Hy-Vee Battle on Broadway, it is a pit stop competition slated for the Broadway area of downtown Friday, September 13th, which will help kick off the weekend. Following that, you're going to get burnouts from some of the IndyCar drivers. And then country act Brantley Gilbert is going to perform in what is being billed as the world's largest album release party. His new album, Tattoos, will be released, I guess, that week. Tickets for the race and the schedule for all of the events can be found at musiccitygp.com. Not that they're paying me for that, but they should. In a deal that's set to affect both IndyCar and NASCAR broadcasts for NBC Sports, Lee Diffie, this guy right over here, has been doing a hashtag for how long?
Many years. Let's say that.
Diffie Dodega.
It's happening.
He's going to get his wish.
It's happening.
Lee Diffie has long been the lead IndyCar announcer for the network, but he's set to shift to NASCAR. He's got a long-term contract with the network beginning this weekend at Daytona, while Kevin Lee is being bumped up to primary announcer for the network's IndyCar races. Diffie's been with NBC's IndyCar coverage since 2009. He's been the lead announcer the past several years, including for the past 6 Indy 500s. Diffie was also sent to Paris to help with the coverage by NBC of the Olympics. He covered mostly track and field. Kevin Lee has been with IndyCar on NBC also since about 2009, has filled in for Diffie in the past, including last weekend at Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway. He'll take over as the lead announcer to the end of this year when NBC loses IndyCar coverage and next year it goes to Fox. Remember, we told you about that. As for what NBC is doing as the shuffle continues. So Lee Diffie is in, right? That means Rick Allen's out. Rick Allen, who's been pulling double duty as lead announcer for both Cup and Xfinity, is just going to concentrate on Xfinity, which is set to air on the USA Network until the CW Network takes over at Bristol in September and for the final 8 races of the year. While the races will air on CW, NBC will produce the race broadcast to help out CW until they can get all of that stuff in place. Allen has called NASCAR and NBC since the 2015 season. This kind of tells me that Rick Allen may be sliding to the CW next year on a full-time basis.
What it seems like to me there, Bob.
As for what the NBC IndyCar broadcast team will do with Lee Diffie signed long-term, moving to NASCAR coverage, again, IndyCar going to Fox, what is the rest of the team going to do? No announcements have been made. Kevin Lee's not being quiet. He said this, quote, "I'm freelance, so I'm always available. Even my current deal with NBC could allow me to work for other networks. What I'd love to do is continue IndyCar with Fox and then do the endurance races in IMSA with NBC." Fox has yet to comment, and you mentioned the 2 drivers, former drivers, I should say, who are up in the booth as well that are doing announcing. They have both said, we're open, we'll go.
And quite honestly, I think Fox would be dumb to not pull at least James Hinchcliffe.
Yeah.
Because James Hinchcliffe is very, very, very good in the booth.
Mm-hmm.
He's very good. Townsend Bell is good as well.
Agreed.
But I made it a point to turn on, when I got home yesterday, to turn on and watch Cup qualifying from the television broadcast. That is a refreshing sound to hear Diffie calling a NASCAR race.
It is different.
Calling a Cup race. But, and I'm putting this public service announcement out there. Jeff Burton and Steve Letarte, shut up and let the man talk, because you could tell they were trying to take over the broadcast. They were trying to talk more than he was. Joey,
there's a reason he's called the lead announcer.
Thank you. Yeah. They were trying, but I think he caught on quick, and they failed miserably. Because basically, for a little bit there, all it was he was Joey Gase, however his New Zealand accent.
He's got a great accent.
Joey Gase, BJ McLeod, the veteran BJ McLeod, however he talks. Then once he caught on, he started talking a little bit more. But back to the moral of the story, it is refreshing to hear Diffie's voice on a Cup Series broadcast. It's needed it for a long time. It's happening, and I hope he stays there. It seems like he's going to, because I'm telling you,
he knows what he's doing.
It's going to be magnificent tonight. Hearing him call a super speedway race.
Yeah.
Because the last Cup race he called at Michigan was wild enough. Super speedway race is going to be bonkers.
I can't wait. To F1, if Lewis Hamilton was hoping to bring his longtime Mercedes engineer with him as he moves to Ferrari, hang it up. Pete Bonington has been his race engineer since he joined Mercedes back in 2013, helped him win 6 of his 7 F1 titles since then, and it was thought that Bonington might be willing to follow Hamilton to Ferrari next year, but never actually announced any intent. Then Mercedes this week, through a spokesperson, told Formula1.com that Bonington is set to stay at Mercedes and likely is going to get a promotion that will take place immediately. He will finish out this year as Hamilton's engineer. The report adds that he will continue as the race engineer for one of the 2 Mercedes drivers next year, in addition to whatever his new role would be, which was not detailed. So in other words, you're going to get a new title. You better get a raise to go with that title. I'm just saying. But you're going to continue as a race engineer anyway. We'll see.
Yep.
Sergio Perez, meanwhile, while he is staying at Red Bull, will be getting a new race engineer to see if that's going to help turn his fortunes around. Longtime engineer Hugh Bird's set to go on paternity leave, and with that, Richard Wood moves into the performance engineer role. or moves from performance engineer to race engineer for Perez. How long Bird's going to be out, not detailed. Will be in the role, I'm going to say, with 10 races left, maybe the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. Will that cause a change to next year? We'll see.
It's possible.
Alpine needed a driver for 2025. It seems with the pending departure of Esteban Ocon to Haas F1 at the end of the year. I say needed because they announced on Friday they're going to promote a young Australian native by the name of Jack Doohan. Jack Doohan's their reserve driver this year. Doohan claims second in the F2 standings in 2023 before taking on the Alpine reserve role this year. He's been in several F1 rookie practice sessions to show Alpine his capabilities, and he gets to take over the car full-time next year next to Pierre Gasly. Gives them a young driver lineup, maybe a little too young for a team that is currently at the bottom of the standings and can't figure out their way out of the cellar.
Maybe.
Just saying.
Gasly's got enough experience for me.
Well, I mean, he automatically becomes the lead. There's no doubt about that.
Either way around.
But this is a team that is in massive transition. You're losing your quote-unquote number one driver in Esteban Ocon, your veteran. So Pierre Gasly has to step up. He becomes the mentor for Jack Doohan. But now you're also dealing with this situation where they're in their last year as their own engine maker next year. So the turmoil over there, if I'm an Alpine person, if I'm an Alpine fan, I'm not terrifically confident about the immediate future. And if I'm people like Ryan Reynolds and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, who just within the last year and a half all put millions of dollars in to become part owners of this team, I might be a little more scared than the fans. Because there's a lot of turmoil, and that means you got a lot of tunnel before you see the light at the end of it.
I don't know. I don't know.
And they all better hope that light isn't an oncoming train.
Yeah, hopefully so.
Haas F1 soap opera surrounding the 2021 and 2022 primary sponsor Uralkali, remember them, continues. Haas cut ties with Uralkali after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but in June of that year, a Swiss tribunal ruled that Haas needed to return money owed to the sponsor for cutting the sponsorship deal short. Haas officials admitted that there is, quote, no dispute over the amounts owed, unquote. So pay them. Remember, all of this was June of 2022. This is August of 2024, and since they haven't gotten the money yet, Uralkali sent bailiffs to the Zandvoort Circuit Court with an itemized list, came along with the ruling. The court has ruled that it could prevent Haas F1 from packing up and leaving the Netherlands as planned on Monday unless the money is refunded.
That ain't happening.
Sorry,
but that ain't happening.
Haas insists they will take care of the bill before them. A statement from the team that was released on Friday said this, quote, Haas fully intends to pay to Uralkali all amounts due pursuant to the arbitration award. There is no dispute over the amounts owed. Haas has been working with its lawyers to ensure payment will comply with all relevant United States, European Union, United Kingdom, and Swiss sanctions, laws, and regulations. We will continue working with Uralkali to resolve the matter definitively. Reports that the ordered total amounts to some $9 million U.S. Judging by what we know of Gene Haas,
probably within his back pocket.
Probably. Tip money. Lewis Hamilton has obviously heard about the initial proposal for the potential race on the continent of Africa, specifically the country of Rwanda. We talked about that last week on the show. F1 CEO Stefano Domenicali recently called the proposal a good plan, his words, not mine, showing just how serious they are about hosting F1 in the future. Hamilton said Thursday that in the media session upon arriving in Denmark for this weekend's race, quote, we can't be adding races in other locations and continue to ignore Africa. The rest of the world takes from. Nobody gives anything to them. I think having a Grand Prix there would really highlight how great the place is and bring in some tourism. Why are we not on that continent? The current excuse is maybe there's not a track that's ready. Well, there's not in Rwanda. We looked. So they're going to have to create one, whether it's a permanent road course or a city street course. There is the one in South Africa, but South Africa hasn't ponied up yet. And you want to know why? there's not a race in the continent of Africa right now? I'll tell you. Money. Because other than the United States of America, all these other races that happen all throughout the calendar, which means 21 out of 24 races on the current Formula One calendar, they're being paid for by the country. They're popping out the $40 to $50 million for the rights to host an F1 race. The United States of America is not going to pony up for Miami, COTA, or Las Vegas, much less all three. So they were able to cut pretty good deals because Formula One wants to be in the United States of America. Last we heard, COTA was hosting an F1 race for somewhere between $20 and $25 million. I would assume Miami and Las Vegas are the same way. That's why you see probably a little bit more sponsorship surrounding all of those events if you were to actually go to them and be on the grounds. You would see a lot more sponsorship actually being represented at those three places than if you went to the British Grand Prix. But they're making up the money on their own. How many countries in Africa can afford to throw out $40 to $50 million to host an F1 race? I'm just asking the question.
Not many.
There you go.
If any.
ESPN, which carries Sky Sports coverage of Formula One here in the U.S., reports that the first half of the 2024 season has seen another uptick in ratings, splitting the season to before the August break and after. So, yeah, it's not exactly an even split in the number of races, but still. ESPN reports that their coverage of Formula One on ABC, ESPN, and ESPN2 is averaging 1.2 million people per race. That's up from 1.1 million at the same point this time last year. It's about the same as the record average, 1.21 million, that happened over the entire 2022 season. The most viewed race this year on ABC, not really a big shock, the Miami Grand Prix, 3.1 million viewers. In other words, about what the average Cup Series race brings in. The other two ABC broadcast races were Monaco, which brought in 1.965 million pairs of eyes over the Memorial Day weekend. Remember, that was fairly early on Sunday morning. And then the Canadian Grand Prix, which that was a Sunday afternoon race, 1.8 million people. That is a record for that race. But again, when you compare it to what we've been talking about when it comes to the Cup Series and the number of eyes that tend to slap on the television, it's still much lower than that. As for ESPN, their highest number of viewers came with the British Grand Prix, drew in a record for the race 1.3 million. 5 races this year show a year-over-year viewership gain. Japan, Miami, Monaco, Canada, and Spain. The only race that's slightly down from the 2023 number, that would be the Belgian Grand Prix.
Well, then.
And then there's Venue Sports. They've got a problem, a pretty big one, too. This is that planned cooperative effort for streaming sports from ABC, ESPN, and all of its affiliated networks, along with Fox Sports and all of their affiliated networks. And then there's TBS, TNT, and True TV, set to cost consumers about $42.99 a month. And it's still set to debut later on this month, somewhere in the next week, I think. But Fubo TV has filed suit against the venture, gotten a preliminary injunction against its launch, claiming that it is preventing them from offering their own sports bundle, calling it a violation of antitrust laws. ESPN.com reported on the injunction where it quoted U.S. District Judge Margaret M. Garnett of the Southern District of New York saying, quote, Fubo was likely to be successful in proving that the joint venture would violate antitrust laws and consumers would face irreparable harm in the absence of an injunction. I'm not sure what the harm is. ESPN is leading the way in appealing the injunction. They put out a statement, said, quote, we believe Fubo's arguments are wrong on the facts and the law, and that Fubo's failed to prove that it is legally entitled to a preliminary injunction. Venue Sports is a pro-competitive option that aims to enhance consumer choice by reaching a segment of viewers who are not currently served by existing subscription options. I can partially attest to that. I'm an ESPN Plus person who, guess what? Can't watch Formula One live when it happens, despite the fact that I'm paying them $10 a month. What the heck's up with that? And on that note, hope you have a fantastic week. We'll talk to you Wednesday on Cross Flags and next weekend right here on CRN. Enjoy the racing, won't you?
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
WD